Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am super excited to bring my guest on today. My guest today is Ed Mathews, and he is the founder of Clark Street Capital, a real estate investment firm and developing firm as well. So Ed is a real estate investor, and he also mentors other real estate investors as well. He's also the host of a podcast called Real Estate Underground. So today we're going to be talking all about what it takes to grow and scale a real estate investment business all the way from the ground up, just like Ed has. So, Ed, I'm super excited to have you on the show and I want to welcome you.
Thanks, Kobe. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's nice to meet you too. And so, before we kind of dig in, would you mind just kind of giving our audience a brief background of who you are and how you got started and what is it that kind of got you into real estate and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, right on. So I am Ed Mathews, founder of Clark Street Capital. I'm 53 years old. I am a recovering technology geek from Silicon Valley. I spent about 24, almost 25 years traveling the world, slinging software and consulting services. And then back in 2011, I bought my first property as a side hustle. It was a 4 unit, and I was on Clark Street in East Hartford, Connecticut, and thus the name of my company. Um, and over the next 7+ years, we would, flip a couple houses and take the capital and buy another multi, flip a couple houses, buy another multi, flip a couple houses, rinse and repeat, right? And pretty soon, and there's reasons for this, which we can get into, but pretty soon in late 2017, I recognized that the portfolio income that we had built over the years basically surpassed my income from my W-2 job. And I had 2 teenage daughters who really wanted their dad home because I was traveling, 150, 200 nights a year. And so, my wife and I decided, let's go take the plunge and go full time on the real estate thing and get off the road, which was a huge win for me and my family. Because I really like my wife and I really like my daughters, and they appear to still like me a lot, which is a good thing. And so it was just a great opportunity to take a step off the treadmill of the corporate rat race and start growing our portfolio. Eventually we transitioned to multifamily only, stopped flipping, and we've been doing that ever since.
Awesome. 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 So you have
Yeah,
a really cool story as far as, and you mentioned being on the road a lot, just for your
yeah.
job, right? So that brings up an interesting point because you were investing, but you're also on the road a lot. So how did that kind of work, investing in a location, but, constantly traveling and, kind of being on I guess like on a plane or, in a car going
Oh
somewhere.
yeah.
So how did that all work?
Thank God for cell phones and laptops and Wi-Fi. The good news is about the way technology was, back in the, 07, 08, when they finally developed smartphones, and thank you, Steve Jobs. And the fact that Wi-Fi became pervasive around that same time. I was a walking office, so I could do my job during the day, and from whatever hotel I was in, by night and early morning, I could run my business. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think a lot of people, when they think about investing, they think they need to be in a specific location, right? And they think, being
Yeah.
on the road, there's probably a lot of, I guess, things that they can't manage from the day to day. And from what I've
Right.
heard from a lot of investors is that it's actually good sometimes where you're investing either in an out of state location or, kind of off site, if you will, because that way it actually forces you not to be so hands on with the management process. So that way you don't get bogged down into, the inner workings of the business.
Yeah, there's certainly some merit to that. I am pretty handy. I mean, I can paint, I can frame, I can, hang sheetrock. I can do basic plumbing and basic electrical. Should I? No. Because the fact is that the professionals I hire do a better job and a faster job. And the exchange of value in terms of me paying them for the speed and expertise is worth it every time. And so, yes, in fact, the fact that I was managing a general contractor and, handymen and plumbers and electricians from wherever I was, certainly forced me to do it that way. And then it just came down to process, so that everybody understood exactly what was expected. What was the budget, what was the time frame, exactly what was supposed to happen, and then hiring the right people to execute, right? And sometimes we got that right, and every once in a while we got it wrong. So, and that's good too.
Right, absolutely. So I think we're going to jump back to that here later on,
Sure.
developing a process, because that's really really interesting point, I think, of any business, is being able to develop that duplicatable process. But kind of
Yeah.
going back to, your first deal, right? So, I read, kind of on your LinkedIn profile that you had a pretty interesting story of, how you got that first deal. So do you mind kind of
Uh-huh.
sharing, how you just, got into that first deal in the first place, and, the fears that you had to overcome? Because I think a lot of
Right.
people, when they first think of investing in real estate, right, they have similar fears, and they want to know how they
Of
can
course they do.
overcome that to move forward.
Yeah. If they don't have those fears, they do not understand the magnitude of the responsibility they're taking, right? So, yeah, so very close friend of mine, gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad as a gift, and it was a gift, and it radically changed my viewpoint in terms of taking care of my family, creating wealth, just the perspective of my ability in a W-2 job to kind of have the freedom that I craved and wanted, and the ability to go to softball games and choral concerts and dance recitals and swim meets and parent teacher meetings and all that, which I didn't really have the ability to do when I was in the corporate world. I missed a lot of good stuff. And so uh, after reading the book in earnest, I started hunting for properties. And I met a real estate agent who at that time was running a very small brokerage here in Connecticut, Amy Rio. And Amy, bless her heart, showed me, I don't know, a couple dozen properties. And I always found an excuse not to buy it, right? Oh, this one needs a roof. I don't want to deal with that. Oh, this one has stained glass. I don't want I don't want to deal with that. And this one's blue. I'd rather have a white building. And so it took me 3 years to actually pull the trigger, and and to overcome what I have now come to understand was total and complete abject fear, right? And so what it took to push me over the top was this little dynamo of a human being, Amy Rio. So I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like 6'4", and Amy is, if she's 5'2", I'd be surprised. And so I'm a better part of a foot taller than her, right? And so normally in normal situations, a guy my size, if threatened by a woman her size, probably I probably wouldn't react. However, in this case, it was very different. So Amy and I met at this property on Clark Street in East Hartford. It was a 4-family. The property was in foreclosure. Basically somebody had bought it to flip it and got in over their head and left the keys on the counter, and the bank took it back. And so Amy had this, and so we pull into the lot, and a lot was done, but a lot was left to do. And so I start the normal diatribe of, oh, it needs, the back fire escape needs painting. Oh, it needs a roof. Oh, it needs this, it needs that, whew. And Amy was listening and nodding, and I could hear her, and I could see her nodding. And, she took out as she's nodding, she took out a pen and clicked it, and very carefully and gently laid a purchase and sale agreement on the hood of my truck. And she listened to me and she said, okay, here's the deal. I have shown you, I think it was, 24 buildings, and you haven't bought one. And if this is by far the best deal I've ever shown you. And if you don't buy this, if you don't sign that effing agreement, I'm never speaking to you ever again. And she absolutely terrified me. Because I thought she was going to kill me. I took the pen, handshaking, and signed that contract. And to this day, I own that property. And to show you what a Dynamo Amy is, she now runs, I think, the largest brokerage in the state of Connecticut. She's several hundred agents strong. And when I was gallivanting around Connecticut with her, I think she had 4 or 5 agents. So she's created her own empire. So wherever Amy is, I only talk to her a couple times a year now because she's busy and I'm busy. But wherever she is, I'm grateful for her scaring the living daylights out of me, and making me fear for my life and making me sign that contract, because that property has launched a pretty cool business. So.
Right, absolutely. And sometimes you need somebody like that, right, in your life to kind of give you a little kick, right, to kind of get started.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm unbelievably grateful that she either took pity on me or saw something in me and stuck with me, because I wouldn't be here without that experience.
Right, absolutely. And that brings up a pretty good point, which is kind of in the beginning, right? A lot of people, they either make one or two mistakes. And one is they're
Without
too
doubt.
too fearful that, they're they don't know what to do, and they just never take any action. The other one is, they're too they want to take action too fast, and they make the mistake, kind of like, the flipper who, purchased the property that you actually bought, right? They got in over their head. Maybe they didn't do their numbers, and maybe
Right.
they didn't run, any analysis that was actually relevant to what they were trying to do. So when it
Right.
comes to, getting your first couple of deals going, right, especially somebody who's really kind of looking to get started, how do you find that balance, right? Obviously you have somebody kind of by your side to kind of help you there, to show you what's the right, that's the right deal to kind of buy. But how are you finding that balance? And I think even for seasoned investors, being able to find that balance of creating, a good standard for buying a property versus, not going in there and just not, making the mistake of purchasing too quickly just to kind of get into a good deal, but ended up not buying a good deal.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it all starts with mindset, right? And I'm not talking about, seize the day or anything like that. What I'm talking about is, um, you know, having a bias towards action, right? Understanding that you're never going to know everything. And it's impossible to know everything about a property or a deal, right? You make the best decision with the information you have. And the other part of it is, from an execution perspective, you need to be crystal clear on your buying criteria and understand that this business is marketing and math. That's it, right? There is no emotion. Somebody, I was mentoring, I'm fortunate to kind of help a whole bunch of folks kind of informally. But I'll get a phone call every once in a while. Hey, I was wondering if you could take a look at this deal for me, kind of stuff, right? Or I'm stuck on this project. What would you do, right? And I love doing that. But the thing that I've realized is that emotion can't ever be a part of this business. The only property I'm emotional about is my home, and that's because of the memories that live there, right? And the human beings that live there, who I'm fond of, and they like me too, right? So the one person asked me, when you look at a property, what do you see? Or what do you look for? And I said, honestly, I feel like it's the Matrix. And she looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, everybody sees nails and wood and vinyl siding and windows and asphalt roofs and grass and flowers and whatever else. I mean, I see that, but what I'm actually seeing is the data kind of trickling down, and the math, right? Every single property we look at, and I'm going to look at one right after this interview, as a matter of fact. Would I love to buy it? Absolutely, because I'm starved for deals. And with this market the way it is, when you get a deal that pencils, you want to pounce on it, right? But I'm going to go into that meeting. My numbers work or they don't, and I don't really care if they don't, right? because I get smarter with every building I inspect. And for me, it comes down, I see spreadsheets, right? It comes down to math for me. It either pencils or it doesn't. And that's it, right? I'm crystal clear on what I need a property to perform at, for me and my investors and partners to, invest our money in the projects. And if it falls in that buy box, we buy it. If it doesn't, we offer and hope that eventually we can meet, somewhere in that box. And if they take another offer, so be it. Right. The last part of it is, and I always see these gurus on, Twitter and YouTube and all that saying, if I had to do it over, I would, I wouldn't flip one house. I wouldn't buy one small multifamily. I'd go immediately into the 100-unit multifamily business. Whoo, boy, is that a dumb idea, right? Because, the fact is that I've seen so many people get in over their head very quickly, much like the person who had bought that 4-family that I ended up buying. It was a $99,000 building. It needed, $12,000 worth of work to make it clean and safe. And then over time, I made it, beautiful, upgrading the units and new roof, new windows, new fire doors, new exterior doors, all the stuff you do to upgrade a property, make it clean and safe and beautiful. And I was totally fine with hitting a single, right? Because I made so many mistakes in terms of not vetting residents as effectively as I should, not being as responsive from a property management perspective as I should, trying to do everything myself from, some Courtyard Marriott somewhere in the world, all by myself. And, I made a lot of mistakes. And so, I'm glad I made them on a property that cost me $100,000 rather than a property that cost me, $5 million. Small property, small mistakes, big properties, big mistakes. And so, I was totally fine with hitting singles and eventually some doubles along the way. I'm a baseball, softball guy, so I think in terms of, that. And and because those compound, right? You gain experience, you gain wisdom, you build skills, you build business systems, right, to manage all of this. And, eventually it transforms from a side hustle, which was what Clark Street was, in the early years, to an actual business that runs and operates, whether I am, sitting here in my office in Connecticut, or I'm, on vacation with my wife and family, or I'm, somewhere else, right? And, so it takes time. And that's the last thing I would say is, get your head around being okay hitting a handful of signals before you start swinging for the fences and buying the 100-unit properties, because that's a massive responsibility on a lot of levels.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think a lot of people, they think, being aggressive in investing, they don't really think about the responsibility of it, right? Like, what are the mistakes going to cost you, your investors, what is the contingency plan if, something happens in that deal where it doesn't go the way that you had thought it would. And a lot of times, that does happen.
Yeah.
But you brought up a really good point, which is the systems of the business, right?
Right.
Developing systems. And right now, currently, you mentioned that, you're able to kind of have an operating business, whether you are available or not. So kind of walk us through that process as far as, when does that start, right? And, maybe you can talk more about like, when did that start for you as far as building out these processes and putting them in place? And also the perspective, if you were to go back, would you have started earlier? Maybe just right from the start. So that way, there's, I guess, like less of a learning curve and less time in between the time when you start setting it up versus a time where, you're at a point now where you can step out.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I entered this business and ran it like a multi-million-dollar business pretty much from day one. And so what that meant for me was managing costs, first and foremost, knowing my numbers, right? But but also I had checklists for everything, right? As I was doing something like, buying that property, right? You had to, secure financing, you had to, wire the down payment and put it in escrow. You had to, hire an attorney, you had to get an insurance binder for the property and, set up utilities in the company in the you had to set up an LLC, right? All that stuff. And so as I was doing it, I was basically jotting down, okay, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did. And I'm a tech guy, right? So I think in terms of process and enabling technology when possible. And so I pretty much did that from day one. And then over time, as we executed, as we broke stuff, right? Those processes would mature and evolve and change. As we hired teammates, team members, my guidance to them was, here's how we do it today. I don't care if we do it this way tomorrow. You can do it your way if you want. It just needs to be as good or better. And so then, as we bring on, talented people, they make the processes their own. And, obviously I have to buy into what they're doing, but beyond that, it gives them ownership of those processes. It also simplifies the business quite a bit, because I think that, one of the things that like I'm prone to, right, is I love making complex things, right? And that's not good in business, right? Simple is way better, right? And mainly because it makes it a lot easier to run, makes it a lot easier to scale. And I don't need, quite frankly, I'm fortunate I have a great team of professionals, but the fact is that I view my role. I was just talking to another investor, and he was asking me, what's your philosophy on hiring? And I said, look, I need passion players, not paycheck players. And what I mean by that is I need someone who's proud of the work that they do, right? I don't need someone who's showing up just for a paycheck and just kind of doing the bare minimum. I need somebody that's going to be proud of, the social media posts that they're doing, or the website that they're building, or the accounting, bookkeeping that they're performing, or whatever, right? And the other part of it, though, is that my job as the CEO of this company is to create a business system that is simple enough to run, that normal average people, you don't have to be rocking 150 IQ to do this business, right? And frankly, I know plenty of dumb people, myself included, who do quite well in this business, and they're an average intellect and average ability, right? And so my job as CEO is or president, or whatever title I'm flinging around today, is to create a simple business system that pretty much anyone that is of normal ability can succeed quite well at, right? And because I've noticed over the years, when somebody is struggling, and you've hired the right person and someone's struggling, it's almost always my fault, right? Because I've added too much complexity, or I've overwhelmed them, or I'm not giving them enough support or training. And so the way that I combat that is keep it simple, right?
Yeah, I absolutely love that, keeping it simple. And I think the way that, people want to think about it is there's a lot of very high performers, as far as investors, business owners, people who maybe started out on their own, right? And maybe they are, really good. And even in our, people I work with all the time, real estate agents who are very
Yeah,
high performers on their own, but they
right.
have a hard time, scaling, right? For agents, that it becomes they have a hard time building a team or a brokerage under them, so that they're able to kind of transfer the skill sets over. And I really like what you said, which is keeping it simple, right? Because I think a lot of times what happens is people think about, how do I develop a system where it's not necessarily complex, but it kind of caters to or towards the other high performers of the world. And as we all know, if somebody's a high performer, they're in the top 1 to 10% of the world, and there's not, there's 90% of the world that isn't in that field or in that range of people that you're really looking to target. So I think, keeping it simple, right? Building systems that like you said, the somebody with the average intellect and the average ability are able to kind of plug into and do and be successful with, that covers all the bases, right? Because somebody who's, like quote unquote average can plug into it, but if somebody who's also a high performer, they can come in and, like you said, they can make the systems their own. They can go out there and do it better, and they have the freedom to do that as well. So I think that's a really key point of building any type of business is make sure the systems are simple and somebody can plug in and just be able to do it. Almost like, reading the book, The E-Myth, right? How they talk about the story of the
Yeah,
McDonald's brothers and how they were able to do
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, Michael Gerber. I read that book, a long time ago, and I've since read the E-Myth for Real Estate Investors, which was equally good. And there's a whole host of them out there. Gino Wickman's work, traction and EOS stuff and all that. But the fact is that simplicity enables you to move so much faster, right? Because I don't need to spend, 2 weeks training you on how to be a transaction coordinator. I can sit with you for a couple hours in the morning, hand you a bunch of videos that go through the checklists and processes that we execute, circle back at the end of the day and sit down with you for another hour or two. And, the next morning you're locked and loaded, ready to go. Right. And so my goal is, in terms of, so we hire a lot of virtual assistants in the Philippines. I think we have 8 of them working in various roles in our business right now. And, so it's got to be easy. They're 8,000 miles away, right? It's not like I can walk by their office and see that they're, either having a good day or struggling and throw an arm around them and go, hey, how can I help? So the way to combat that, and, this is something I learned watching, some of the executives that I used to work with and for, in my technology days, that, how the heck do you get a person in San Mateo, California to work productively and efficiently with a team lead in Florida who's managing a development team in India and a Q&A team in Russia or Ukraine? How do you make all that work, right? And, the first pillar of that is keep it simple, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think another good point that you brought up when you were talking about, how you developed your systems was in the beginning. I think a lot of people, and this is going to pretty much go across the board for anybody in any business, is that they're going to be a one-man band, right? They're going to be
Yeah,
pretty much themselves. They're going to start on their own.
sure.
And the way to start doing that is to, like you said, document the systems that you're doing, right? So every step of the way, what are you doing, right? What websites are you opening, right? How are you finding deals, right? Like what are the exact step-by-step process that you are yourself doing to find deals? Document it so that way it not only gives you a predictive or a predictable system to go back on
Right.
the next time, but now you can take that, have it be the organizational manual or the instruction manual for your company that you're building, and be able to now hire people to plug into those positions as well. So
Right on. Yeah. I mean, it's, we talked about earlier that, we're in the math business, but primarily we're in the marketing business. Right. And so, creating deal flow, for instance, everyone, when I'm talking to them about how we do it, right, they're always like, there isn't anything else. And, basically, so I teach what's called concentric circle marketing. Right. So it's kind of like a realtor looks at, a brand new realtor's coming into a market, and she is looking to start her business, right? And so the way you do that is you pick a neighborhood and you make sure that everyone in that neighborhood knows exactly who you are, and your value system and your character, and how hard you're willing to work, and the successes that you've had. And in that neighborhood of, let's say, 100 homes, and you what I like to call suck the oxygen out of that market. And basically what it means is that when Kobe and his beautiful wife Alice are looking to sell their house and trade up or move to a different part of the world, that the only person they really should call is the one that has been very gently and consistently pinging them, hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Here's the value I can add. Here's how I can solve your problem. Here's how I can make your life easier. And then, she gets a phone call and gets her first listing. Exact same thing works in real estate investing, right? There are 1,208 properties in the state of Connecticut that I would like to own someday if I don't already own them, right? And that is a very specific number, and it's a number I found because we went through and got real clear on two very specific things. One, our buy box, right? We know exactly what we want. We're hunting for 10 to 25 units in the state of Connecticut, and a whole host of other criteria. And then I went and found every single building that meets that criteria. And so now I know where they are. I know, I know who owns them pretty much. So now it's a four level framework, right? Create awareness. Hey, I'm out here, right? Make friends, build a relationship. And, the way that we do that is by creating value, right? I'm happy to help. I'm happy to tell you, no strings attached. I'll work, I'll run the numbers on your building and tell you exactly what it's worth. No, you don't have to sell it to me. No, you don't owe me a thing. I'll even buy the cup of coffee when we sit down and talk about it. But basically we're creating a value exchange or a friend, and ultimately a friendship where, those folks learn that, I'm a good, honest guy and I'm trying to do right by them. And, my ulterior motive, which I'm upfront about, is, hey, someday when you're ready, I'd like to buy this building. Right. And so over time, we become friends, and I serve them in other ways. They serve me in ways, we network together. They connect me with people, I connect them with people, whatever. Right. And we generate trust. So that's a third kind of level to the framework. And, as we have built that trust, at some point in the near future, and sometimes it's a few weeks and sometimes it's, a few years, you earn the right to do business. And so the way that we create those relationships is digital marketing and direct mail. Same way realtors do it. And but the fact is that the key to that is I am crystal clear where I'm hunting. Crystal clear. Right.
Right. Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, digital marketing, because, you mentioned the business is marketing and math. And I think for podcast sakes, marketing is a more fun topic to really dive into than math is.
True.
Right.
It's certainly more sexy, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, you mentioned digital marketing. So what is your philosophy on that? Because I don't, I see a lot of real estate agents doing digital marketing for their business. It's almost too much at this point. But investors, I think, maybe they don't see a way to kind of use or leverage digital marketing and social media unless they're, kind of promoting their brand to coach other investors. So what are you guys doing as far as, digital marketing or leveraging social media when it comes to getting in front of the, like you said, the homeowners or the owners of the properties that you're looking to purchase one day?
So I'm looking to do a few very specific things. One, I'm creating awareness. So, hey, I'm out here and I just did a deal very similar to the building, with a building very similar to the one you own, right? And here's how it worked out, and everybody's happy, champagne and caviar for everybody. And then so case study is a big thing. Education is another. So, we've launched a newsletter that I'm actively soliciting those 1,208 owners to join. And I'm teaching them how to run their business with as little stress as humanly possible, right? Here's how you create deal flow. Here's how you, create work order management process. Here's how here's the things that we pay attention to on a customer service level. Here's how we rehab, a unit. Here is the 47 things we do when we acquire a property. And it's clean and safe, and then upgrade common areas, and then upgrade units as they come open, and raise rents, right? I mean, it's basic, it's not hard what we do. But so that's another piece. And then so the digital marketing and direct mail it kind of fulfills one of two things. It's creating awareness, hey, we're out here, right? Or it's educating. And, with every communication, at the bottom, there's a little commercial that says, hey, we buy properties just like the ones that you may own. And, at some point, if you'd like to know what your property is worth, I'm happy to do an analysis. And, if we can ever be of service, I am happy to help you any way I can. So for me, I think in terms of abundance, right? It's this world is a gigantic pie, and there are slices for everybody, right? And so I'm cool with Kobe buying a 10-unit building in New London, Connecticut. I'm happy for him. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get a shot at buying it, but that's good because I'll probably get the next one, and I'm okay with that, right? And I'm also okay with sharing our swipe files, our emails and our text messages and our direct mail mailers and all that. And people are like, well, why are you willing to give me this? I was like, because I'm 10 years ahead of you. If you can catch me, awesome, but I don't think you can, right? So just do you and I'll do me, because we're all reading the same book, right? I'm a few chapters ahead of you, but somebody else is a few chapters ahead of me, and that's just the way it works, right? And so just making sure that the folks that need to be aware of us are aware of us, and they understand the value that we'll bring to them, in most cases free of charge. And my goal is to help them, and then ultimately they will help me by selling their building to me when they retire, decide to trade up, get sick of being a landlord, whatever, right?
Right. That's super interesting as a strategy, because I think, not a lot of people think of that, right? Or maybe I'm just not in the game enough to know this, but like, because you're dealing with other investors, right? You're dealing with multifamily property. So the owners on these are not, when they think of buying a single family home, this is somebody's, somebody's
Yeah,
home that they're living in. This is another investor. So you're basically approaching them as, hey, I'm an investor, I'm in the area, here's what I do, here's what you can do to improve the property, I'm sharing all this value, all this information with you, and maybe one day if you wanted to sell it, we're here to buy as well. So
right
it's
on.
a different approach. Am I
Yeah,
correct on
and
that?
it is. And the other piece of this, with all due respect, is I'm upfront with them. I'm not a realtor, right? I'm not a
Right.
broker. I'm not an agent. I'm not fishing for a listing, right? I'm legitimately, 10 years from now, when you decide that it's time to move on, I would like to be the first phone call. That's my motive, and I'm very transparent about that. And so yeah, it creates, I make a lot of friends doing that, and because I help them, right? And uh the and quite frankly, it helps with deal flow, because I'm finding properties that no one didn't even know about, right?
Right.
And I'll get phone calls like, how the heck did you find out that guy was selling? I've been watching that property for years. I was like, he's a friend of mine, he called me.
Wow. That's powerful.
Right, right.
Getting that relationship before somebody's even ready to do business, right? So that way it really kind of um just building that foundation. So, and you've done a
Yeah,
great job of doing that. So,
thank you. Yeah, dig the well before you're thirsty, right?
yep, absolutely. So, Ed, I want to thank you for being on the show today. You shared a lot of great value in a lot of different aspects for our real estate agents listening to this, real estate investors, just any business owner in general, in my opinion. But before we kind of let you sign off, if somebody listening to this or watching this and they want to reach out to you, or they want to learn more about what you're doing, what are some of the best places to either follow you on or to kind of reach out to you on?
Yeah, so I'm Ed Mathews 4 on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and then my company Clark Street is clarkst.com, and Clark Street Capital on all the various social media channels. And then the last place is we have our own educational based podcast called Real Estate Underground. And so if folks want to listen and figure out what we're doing here in the background, that is, I interview really interesting, very accomplished real estate investors, flippers, realtors, wholesalers and a lot of multifamily self-storage, you name it. Because I think, we can get best practices from them that you can apply to your own business, regardless of what asset class you're focused on. So it's a lot of fun, and it certainly scratches my itch to give back to the community. So that's those are the ways.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to leave the links to that in the description and the show notes down
Thank you.
below. And Ed, I want to thank you again for being on the show. But any last thoughts? Any last pieces of value? Any last nuggets you want to leave with us here?
Yes, don't listen to the gurus out there. The best time to have bought real estate was 10 years ago. The next best time is right now. And the fact is, the fact that mortgage rates are, in the 6 to 8% range, that historically is exactly where they're supposed to be, right? So, make the math work. If you can make it work, make an offer. If you can't make it work, make a lower offer, and get into it. Act now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed, for being on the show. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you for tuning in. And we'll see you guys on the next show. Take care.
Thank you.